Hello, everybody. Hi, Marilyn.
I guess if
I'm gonna wait till other commissioners were here to start letting people in so everyone can let in, but it's just us.
it's good seeing you.
It's nice to see you too.
If I don't talk to you, have a good Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. Are you gonna be here? Hi, Sammy.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Hello, hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be here too. It's my son's first Thanksgiving. He's a freshman in college, so it's his first Thanksgiving home from school. So I think that's like a big one.
Where's he going?
WashU in St. Louis.
Well, I'm glad. I know he'll be glad to be home to have some good home cooked meal.
I'm telling you, he is a really good cook, that one though. He's a very,
Really?
very good cook, my son. So
Does
we
he
miss
make-
him as much as he misses us.
Oh, I'm sure. I remember my mom crying when I left. I mean, it's like mom's just crying. Then a year later, my brother left and she was boo-hooing again, you know.
I know, I got 2 down, 1 to go.
Yeah, well, let's hope everything comes around so they enjoy their life and have success
And democracy.
and democracy. Yes. Well, anyway.
That'll be that's the bar is low for what we're hoping for at this point.
Oh God, you know, I just forwarded to a few folks today a thing from Pamela Smith, and it was talking about how the crime had really gone down in the district, and I'm
I
saying,
saw that.
but did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Said, boy,
That carjacking's down, everything.
everything's down. Yeah, everything's down. So let's hope we survive the next couple years.
All right, we got some commissioners here, so I'm going to be able to make people co-hosts now.
All right.
That will help. That will help the process here. Co-host. Hello, Commissioner Slatnick.
Good evening to all. I don't know whether she's gotten on yet. I just got on and
Mitch, you're
sending-
not on mute. I
uh,
don't know if you intend to be.
yeah, I need to be.
Recording in progress.
Hello, good night, everyone.
Hi, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thank you for inviting us.
Chair Carson, this is Juanita.
Hi, Juanita. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
When I present today, will I be able to attach some documents into the chat for folks?
You know, we changed the way that the chat works because the office of OANC told us it's actually against Robert's rules of order to have basically if you have a chat operating amongst participants,
Mm-hmm.
it's two separate meetings happening at once.
Okay, I'll
Um,
just send you the attachments then.
So
if that's
yeah,
good.
maybe if you send them to me, or actually, could you send them to commissioners
Mm-hmm.
at ANC3F.com, I think it is.
Okay,
And then like one of us will be paying enough attention or
Okay.
being able to multitask is what I mean, to be
Okay.
able to post it. Sometimes I can't listen effectively and share the meeting and post things.
Yeah, I understand completely. Thank you.
But we got a great update from Commissioner Slatnick and Hewitt about your
Task
meeting. So we're
force.
excited to hear more about that.
Yeah,
The task
thank you.
force, sorry, that's the word I was searching for.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're just waiting on we don't have a quorum yet, so it's 6:59. We cannot start at the crack of 7 because we are missing Commissioners David, Iglesias, and Hewitt. So I apologize to those of you who are prompt, but to reference Robert's Rules of Order twice before the meeting has even started, we require a quorum to call the meeting to order. So I'm going to text those guys and hope that they're on their way.
Chair Carlson, this is Phil Gregory. Good evening. Will I be able to share my presentation though?
Yes, you should be
Okay.
able to, you should be
Perfect.
able to share your screen. And if you're not, I actually have, I
My
believe I have it
presentation.
pulled up here on my other screen. At least I did earlier, so that in case you can't, I can. Yep, I have it here. So
Not a problem. I also have it, so I should be able to share. Thank you.
yeah, our settings should allow you to share.
Yep.
Again, apologies. I'm just trying to get the rest of us here so we can start.
What Ed is on now.
Oh, great. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, I think we still need either Adrian or Terry to join here. Mitch, I'm gonna spotlight you. Do you have a video?
There you go.
Thanks. Okay. We have Adrian. Adrian,
Adrian's on.
I just let him in, but I don't see him to spotlight him. Okay.
Nice haircut, Claudette. Sorry.
Okay. Apologies everyone for the little bit of a late start, but I'd like to welcome everyone to the November meeting of ANC3F and call the meeting to order. I'm gonna, here we have Commissioner Slatnick, Commissioner David, Commissioner Bear, Commissioner Iglesias, myself, and I think shortly we'll have Commissioner Hewitt. Has everyone had a chance to look at the October meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
can I ask that we approve them with, if anyone has objection? I did make some changes from the time they were first sent out, but I believe I sent them to everyone. It was changes for clarity, and Adrian, I think you ended up sending those out. Did everyone get those? I changed some like a little bit of clarity, but not any substance.
Actually, there were two meetings in October.
Oh, good point. I'm referring to the meeting minutes for our monthly meeting.
Right.
I did not, I've not seen meeting minutes from our special meeting.
They were
But
very, very short.
That's a good point. We should make sure that those are there. So can we move that we approve the October meeting minutes?
So
I move that
moved.
Thank you. Second, all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. I want to start with, Commissioner Hewitt is here. I'm going to find her here. And while I do that, let's start with Commissioner updates. Commissioner Slatnick.
I'm going to have my updates in my committee, schools and universities committee report.
Okay, great. Commissioner David.
I just wanted to say congratulations to all the commissioners who will be reelected for the next cycle, and thank you to those who will not continue. I think Terry and Marilyn, thank you for your service. This is the last meeting. I did attend MPD's walkthrough that was near at the apartments at Van Ness. One of the major takeaways was there's encampment at on Connecticut and Tilden, and it looks like we're going to have a discussion about that or an update on that. I did hear that there is update from there, so we'll get that in community updates. And that we do have a new moker, William Cox, and he'll probably join later and introduce himself. Thank you.
I think we also have Kendall Gibson, who's the new Mocha manager. I know she's actually on the agenda to, she's gonna give our presentation from the Mokers. Commissioner Bear?
The only update I have is actually a commendation for Adrian with an excellent summary of one of the agenda items that will be going tonight, El Supremo. Adrian, it was one of the finest pieces of writing that I have seen for maybe a dozen or 2 dozen years, and I've seen a lot of writing, but it was complete and well formed, and I know what I'm going to do during that discussion and on the vote. So thank you very much for that.
I appreciate it.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Good evening. Sorry for the last getting on a little late today. My apologies. My update, I had a conversation with Mr. Parsons, who is in charge of the policies that are applied to the Department of Housing, and Mr. Williamson, and about 10 days ago. And it was a fruitful conversation, and specifically having to do with inspections and the current policy of notifying landlords before when there is an inspection. So just working through that right now so that I think much more fruitful outcome and more accurate inspections occur with maybe with changing, not maybe, with changing that policy. So it's a continuing conversation. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, that brings me to me and my update. My update is I'm a member of the Connecticut Avenue Citizens Advisory Committee on the Connecticut Avenue Multimodal Task Force. We had a meeting this month where they updated us on what everyone called the bike lane project. That project, as people know, about 6 months ago, I guess, got changed. It's now been further changed where it's just really going to be spot safety improvements throughout the corridor. So it's not going to be bike lanes. It's not going to be not bike lanes. It's sort of not going to be a lot of changes, but they have a very small, I believe it's a $6 million budget at this point. What I did during this meeting, and Bob Dealing, who is the other 3F representative, is we did both speak to some of the problem spots in 3F that I think a lot of us have heard speak before. I think this may Paul may further discuss this in the streets and sidewalks, but we're talking about I think they're planning to have a regular traffic light at Ellicott Street instead of the Hawk light. I know Terry's been corresponding with a constituent who has talked about the crosswalk in front of Sunrise. I know we did bring that up during the meeting because that is our colleague on 34G, Zach Ferguson, has discussed that. So it's not, this is an evolving process, but I would urge everyone to continue to submit problem issues to 311, to talk to and join the Streets and Sidewalks Committee, to try and bring a lot of these continuing safety and pedestrian issues forward, because they're going to be a little more scattershot than a comprehensive plan, unfortunately. And the second thing, I'm sorry, I have a little more than usual, is we did hear again an update from Mr. Green, who is the medical cannabis dispensary that a lot of you remember we worked with over the past summer to write a settlement agreement. And it was a lot, we did a lot of talking to him and did a lot of work, and he sent us today his proposal for signage, which I believe does not comply with our settlement agreement. And I've already responded to him and let him know that ANC3F intends to enforce the settlement agreement. And the way that he presented that his medical cannabis dispensary would be run is the way that we're going to continue to hold from the ANC's perspective and represent the neighborhood and the neighborhood's wishes on that. So I'd welcome anyone else's feedback as we hear more about that, but I wanted everyone to know that that is in process. So let's move along to committee reports. Housing and neighborhoods. Commissioner Hewitt.
Hi, good evening. So as I said, the conversation with the Department of Buildings in reference to the word escapes me, I just said it, inspections. It's an ongoing conversation. I hope that we'll be able to move forward and successfully with working with that policy, because it's not just Connecticut House, it affects all apartment buildings, because currently how the Department of Buildings handles inspections is to notify the landlord. And with Connecticut House, it's documented successfully each time there's an inspection and it passes with no issues. But once the single time that we were able to have an inspection without notifying the landlord, we found all sorts of Department of Housing and Department of Buildings did a joint inspection and found what we've discussed recently. So this can't be isolated, and that's why this conversation is very important to ensure that if residents who make their home in whatever size dwelling it is, whether it's a large building or a small building or home, you want to be and should be and deserve to be safe. And that means free of infestation of rats and mice and so forth. I would also say with the Department of Buildings, and it was something very important, when you're submitting a 311 request, you go ahead and do that, but also notify the Department of Buildings. Go to dob.dc.gov and submit your issue. The Department of Buildings has very few complaints, and that's because they do not actually interact with 311. So they get very few of those 311 complaints. If you have any issues, if you know of residents or neighbors who do, please implore them to use the Department of Buildings website to submit the complaint. And that's how their inspectors action issues. So it's very important. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Terry. Paul Harrison, are you here? I'm gonna spotlight
I'm
you.
here. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Chair Carlson. Everyone, good evening. Paul Harrison. I'm the chair of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. We did not get a chance to meet this month. We were waiting for elections and new commissioners, but we are looking forward to engaging moving forward. So as always, I'll put my email in the chat box and encourage you to email me if you want to be on our list for when that meeting is convened. Couple quick updates, things that have been happening. First of all, the residents of the 2800 block of Davenport, which is the block descending down kind of windy to Broad Branch, have been in a back and forth with DDOT. The good news is DDOT's being responsive to their requests for traffic calming and pedestrian safety improvements. But I think there's some, they're not quite on the same page as to what those should be. So we're going to keep following that and trying to help with that. Also in the loop on some conversations continuing over time about safe routes to school around merch in particular, and particularly parent drop off and pickup. So we've got a number of members of the community interested in some improvements, particularly in that crosswalk between the church, daycare, Montessori across the street, and the school, which is also where people come and go. So we're going to look forward to engaging with them on getting DDOT to do some improvements there. So if folks are interested in safe routes to school for merch, also encourage you to join our group, and that'll probably be the next place we really focus, particularly also continuing the conversation that Commissioner David and I have had about safety improvements around merch in particular, but in general on Reno through our community. So again, I'll put my email
Paul,
in the
do you
chat.
want to speak quickly to the, I mean, you and I spent a bunch of time up right at the corner of what I like to call Merch and Davenport, but Reno and Davenport. And we did, I don't know what, we spent like 45 minutes out there.
Yep.
Looking at how the traffic flowed in the afternoon. Do you want to just speak to that really quickly?
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, many folks in the community may not know that Reno is actually classified as a minor arterial compared to Connecticut, which is a major arterial. So there's an enormous amount of commuter traffic that's going through there. You know, I'm not sure if that's touching exactly what you were referring to, Courtney, but you know, there is a lot of room for improvement there, and you know, we've got a lot of folks who are basically using that as a cut-through route. So particularly now that the Connecticut Avenue opportunity is there, or the study has gone the way it has, you know, it's important for DDOT to take another step at traffic calming this. And, you know, that side of the street is not, people don't really treat it as it's next to a school. They treat it just like the rest of the street. So we you know, it is unsafe to cross. But I don't know, Dan, is something you were thinking of?
Yeah, no,
Courtney?
I mean, I just think like, 2 points. One is that we're sort of out there looking all the time at how the traffic is moving around the school, because it feels like a really important part of ANC3F and what, it means to be a commissioner and trying, to keep the neighborhood safe. Also, and I think this is for me to make this connection, not you, sorry, but because the Connecticut Avenue study changed somewhat and it's going to be spot improvements, we talked to them both about, you know, safe routes to school, which is federal money that's different, but also taking some of that money for spot improvements and really thinking about how that money can be deployed around Murchfield and Jackson Reed. And I would say that that's a priority, of how, like, at least you and me, Paul, have spent our last 6 weeks or so on streets and sidewalks.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, we've got a corridor there between schools. We've got a park in the middle, and we have, you know, honestly, I think we counted upwards of 70 to 80% of the cars did not have DC plates. That, you know, people allowed to drive through. We drive through their communities. That's fine, but they're not necessarily, you know, the built environment really needs to emphasize to people that you're proceeding past the school and that this is not just an on ramp to an interstate. So a lot of work to be done there.
Thanks. And yeah, we welcome everyone to join in on that work, and we'll be here for you. Commissioner Bear, Parks and Watersheds. Thanks, Paul.
There's no update, and in the future, Madam Chair, George Hoffman will be the point of contact for these updates.
Oh, great. I think I knew that in my head. Sorry, George. Thank you. And thank you so much, George, for taking on the lead of that committee. Commissioner Slotnick, schools and universities.
I have 4 things. First of all, on the 7th of November, I attended the UDC task force led by Juanita Gray. And she's going, because that was such an interesting meeting and there was so much conveyed, I've asked for extra time for her to talk about the programs for seniors that the university has. Gerontology is the real word for the university, but I'm saying seniors. On the 12th of November, I attended the Zoom meeting of the Ward 3 Education Network, where they have representatives from all the schools here in Ward 3. And they had all the DC public school persons, the one in charge of security, the COO, they had the State Department of Education person, and it was absolutely a fantastic meeting about talking about protecting students online. That the State Department of Education person said, and I didn't know we were considered a state when we have a State Department of Education, said that students do not feel safe, that bullying is a concern, that protecting students online. They've got a litany of things that are going on in the schools that they're trying to address. And then they say trailers on school properties should not be considered educational spaces. That you need to make real live spaces for them, that these are not. So it was very interesting. And if anybody can sign in their Zoom meetings and listen to this, but these are in terms of the representatives from each school about, oh, there aren't enough nurses in the school, the ADA requirements are not being met by the schools. It was an eye-opener. won't go any further on that one. And then I had
You can
the,
also watch the State Board of Ed meetings on public access TV, and my son was the student representative on it last year, so I actually have watched those State Board of Ed meetings.
it's fascinating. And it's factual. So that was something else. And then this past week, UDC had their homecoming. And so I went to a couple of the events, but the high point was the last day on Friday when the President Eddington again discussed his 5-year plan, which now they are calling Delivering on the Promise. And he had all the dignitaries. Mayor Bowser was there. Matt Fruman was there. Everybody was there with
You were there,
And I was there. Yes,
all
I
the
was.
dignitaries.
Oh, well, I wasn't seated with them. But anyway, it was interesting about the way that Dr. Eddington is getting buy-in from the whole community. He actually, in his 5-year plan, wants to double the enrollment, going from 6,000 to 12,000 plus or minus, and also student housing is on his agenda. So I'm going to watch that because that absolutely requires brick and mortar. I forgot when you asked me at the beginning, and I'd just like to say that I attended a meeting virtually on November the 14th on chronic homelessness in the city. And it was run by Miriam's Kitchen, Director of Advocacy. And I have to say that I am, if anybody wants information on homeless, facts, figures, flaws, as well as kudos, this is a group that's called the Way Home Campaign. And as I say, it's chaired by Miriam's Kitchen Advocacy Director. And that was truly fascinating. So that's my report. And thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure serving everybody.
Thank you. And I mean, thank you, Terry and Marilyn, so much. We're gonna miss you guys. I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna really miss having both of you spotlighted here on the screen, but we hope you will still be frequent flyers at these meetings. Okay, moving on. That's a great segue to our next item, which is the election. We had we have, I'll just go through. 3F01 was a race between Amy Rothman and Sammy Thuma, both of whom were write-in candidates, so their names were not listed on the ballot. Because it was a write-in situation, in my conversations with the Board of Elections, they would not tell us who the winner is of that race until December the 2nd. So I'm sorry to report we don't know who we're welcoming in to represent our neighbors at 3F01. We do know they will be well represented in Maryland's shoes on December 2nd, and we will let everyone know when we hear. In 3F02, in Commissioner Hewitt's spot, we have Sue Guzman, who many of you met last month. She presented. She is a longtime resident of the neighborhood, a longtime merch volunteer in many ways, and we welcome her. I don't know if you're here, Sue. Adrian Iglesias was reelected to 3F05. Congratulations to you. And the rest of us, that would be Commissioner Bear, Commissioner David, and I all ran unopposed, and luckily we also won. People still voted for us. So thanks a lot, and we look forward. We just thank Marilyn, Terry so much, and wish them so well. And thank you so much for all of the hours you put into this. And we're excited to see you in a different role on these meetings, and we look forward to the next term. So, moving on, Lieutenant Forrest, are you here, MPD? Do you see her, Adrian?
I saw her earlier, so
Okay.
let's see. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Oh, hi, how are you?
I am well. Hello, everybody, and thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure. All of who came to the walk, that was great. I appreciate everyone that turned out. I think it was very informative and very educational for everybody. So I'm gonna run over the stats that we have so far. Our stats are looking pretty decent. The only thing that we have up right now, we have the theft from autos, and that's up 58%. So we have total violent crimes is down 50%. Robberies compared to last month, this month, last year, this time, and this month we have 0. ADW, we're down 100%. Even though we are down in thefts, it's still the biggest driver that we're dealing with, and these are theft that's mainly in the convenience stores, the CVS, the 7-Elevens. We're still trying to tackle those problems. So the repeat blocks that we're having, that I'm seeing from my stats, and if you guys are seeing something different, let me know. With the repeat blocks for the theft from autos, I have the 5,000 block of Connecticut Avenue and also the 2,900 block of Tilden Street Northwest. So those are where we're seeing a lot of repeat theft from autos. And what we're doing about that, we're starting to do, we're having what we call a slow patrol, where we have units pretty much patrolling, slowly with their lights on in position 2 between the midnight tour and probably about until 4 a.m. in the morning. From the evening to the midnight tour, we still do have our CST units that's working with the CVS and the Target and stuff like that with regarding to reducing the retail thefts in that area. And I believe that's all I have with regards to crimes in the area. Also, I will be having a second walk on December 15th. I'm thinking about scheduling it about 10 a.m. I'm going to put in my request as to where to start that walk by Thursday. So if anybody has any anywhere they would want us to start walking, if there's anything particular that you guys would like to show, then
How about the 5,000 block of Connecticut, since you just mentioned that?
Okay, that's great. So I'll put that down, 5,000 block of Connecticut. And
I mean, since I have the microphone, you mentioned it as an issue, and that's like our business, one of our 2 big business districts. I'm sure we would love to convene the business owners there and start from there.
Okay, cool. So first come, first serve. So 5,000 block of
Big mouth wins.
It will be. And 10 o'clock on Sunday the 15th. 10 a.m. Okay. 10 a.m.
Commissioners, does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Slatnick?
Sergeant Forrest, do you have any numbers on police responses to either the Brandywine or Connecticut House?
So numbers, like how many calls we have for service?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I will have to look that up for you. I'm actually at home. I'll be back at work on Thursday. So I will look it up for you and I will email it to you because I think I have your email. And you want the number of call for Brandywine? And which other one?
And Connecticut House.
Brandywine. I'll look that up for you and I'll send that to you, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sergeant Ford, I did have one question, if I may.
Wait, can you hold on just a moment? We're going to commissioners first, and then I'll take questions from the community if people raise their hands.
No
Thank you. Commissioner Bear.
Sergeant Forrest, I have a
Lieutenant
request.
Lieutenant.
You guys are
I'm sorry.
demoting me, but that's okay.
Your indication is Sergeant. I apologize.
We have to fix your title on Zoom.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you. I didn't even know that. You know what it was? It's been there since I was a sergeant. But thanks for letting me know. I take that back. Totally my fault.
Okay,
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Um, the people in Van Ness North have come to me with a nuisance situation where there are a number of people coming from the giant store on Connecticut Avenue and sitting on their benches in front of their building and smoking. I would hope that you would put it down on your list of having your patrols.
Definitely. And you said that's the benches in front of Van Ness, right, coming from the Giants. Do you have like the address for that or no?
Well, Van Ness North is just on,
Is it 5003?
yeah,
5033, maybe?
5033. Okay.
I think
No,
the
it's-
issue
No,
is
it's
that there's
it's 3001 VZ Terrace.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Of
Oh.
course we have people who are here. Thank you guys. Sorry about that.
Okay, so that's 3001. What terrace?
VZ Terrace Northwest.
Right.
Easy. Okay. All right. I'll put that on my special attention list.
Thank you very much.
Northwest.
Does the
You're
person,
you're
I'm
welcome.
going to go out of order for 1 second, but whoever spoke up from that address do you want to elaborate at all about that issue?
Yeah,
You don't have
it's
to.
it's happened twice. The first time it was just a couple of individuals. The second time it was a much larger group. I spoke to the people who were doing it the first time, and they only reluctantly moved off, and I felt unsafe confronting them. I spoke to the people at the store. I spoke to the corporate headquarters. It happened again. I've been assured by the managers at the store it's going to stop, but the corporate headquarters did not respond to me, which was really disappointing. And we've been informed that we should call the police going forward, which I think a lot of residents are going to be reluctant to do. It would be much better if the Giant could be stricter with their employees and ensure that they don't do that. But there also will be signage going up on our property, which we were told is important to have.
Okay, so
And the
Well,
issues there on your property, not that they're in front of the Giant. I sort of wanted
I think
you to
if they
clarify
were,
that, yeah.
I think if they were not smoking, nobody would care if Giant employees were sitting on the bench on our property. Nobody would care. The problem is we have a lot of elderly people. We have a no smoking regulation on our property. And so, you know, the fact that they're lighting up these super fat doobies and hanging out is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll definitely have my units go over there, and also I'll see if we could probably speak to management so that they could speak to their employees so that at least we could nip that in the bud.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Fikes, thanks a lot. Mr. Fikes?
Yes. I've had a lot of questions in my building Connecticut house about the situation with the I think 5-year-old child that died. And the family is the husband or the father's still there because he's not supposed to be in there because of his charges, yada yada yada. So just trying to get an update on what the status is, if you can speak on anything about that. Because I was told he's not supposed to be in the building and he came back in the building right after the situation. So yeah.
Okay, so I am not quite sure of his situation, his living situation with regard to being in the building or not. So who is saying that he cannot be in the building?
Oh, this is just kind of it's just random people that have looked at, I guess, the what do you call it,
Well, I think it was in the police report that he has the children have a protective order.
Let's say we ordered.
I don't know if the children are still there, but certainly in the police report and the criminal complaints that I read, he was not supposed to be near his 2 children. And I actually have also heard this concern from Merch parents because there are 2 other children from that family who are current Merch students. So I think a lot of people have, there's been a lot of talk about the safety of the kids and the residents in the apartment buildings.
especially with them having a gun charge and some other charges going on.
So with regard to the investigation regarding the child. I cannot go in detail with that because it is still on the investigation. However, with regarding to the stay away order and stuff like that, if he does have a stay away order for to stay away from those children, if we get a phone call that he is there and that we do have a stay away order in the system, we can enforce that. So if, say for instance, somebody in the family or whomever see him or whatever and say, okay, he's not supposed to be near my children, near, mom or whatever family member said, okay, he's here, then we'll show up and then we can enforce it then.
Okay, I think we'll have to email and talk offline because number one, I don't even know what he looks like, and there's just a lot of buzz going on in the building. And
Yeah, because the thing about it is, one thing we are also not going to do, we're not going to violate people's rights per se. However, if we get a phone call regarding somebody that has a stay away order, and it could be anybody, not just that gentleman, not just that individual, but anytime we get a call for a stay away, somebody violating their stay away order, if they're there, even if we go there and the person say, oh, you know what, I allow him to come, we still have to enforce that. You know what I mean? So it's whatever is on that paper, whatever the judge is saying that this person has to stay away, whether from the children, from the block, from the building, we're going to enforce whatever is in that stay away order.
Okay, I guess the other question is, and I'm sure you know the specifics of his name and what he looks like and all that, so I guess we have to touch base on, and whatever information you can provide. I guess I'm thinking that should be in the police report, right?
So with regarding to the gentleman, I'll have to figure out how far they are on the investigation because the investigation is not at the that's special liaison unit. They're investigating. So I will touch bases with them, Mr. Fikes, and find out what information we can divulge and how far the investigation is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I think you do have my email, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, so just email me. Look it up.
Marilyn Lance.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Commissioner Slotnick, I'm at the Brandywine. I'm on the board of directors. I don't want to take up a lot of time this evening, but I'll give you a call or send you an email and we can discuss any questions or concerns you have with what is occurring or happening in the Brandywine. I'm in constant communications with Lieutenant Force and MPD officials and the Office of Unified Communications.
Thank you.
Brandywine's lucky to have you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. I think Lieutenant Forrest will follow up with you on Thursday about and then Commissioner Slotnick will follow up with Marilyn on the specifics of Brandywine. Thank you so much for coming to the meeting. Gloria Garcia, Van Ness Main Street. Hi, Gloria.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I also want to echo my thanks to Commissioner Hewitt and Commissioner Slotkin, and then everyone else who's run again. You really put in a lot of time. It's it's sometimes thankless, but just know that you're appreciated, especially from Van Ness Main Street, because it's been quite a year. I do want to report that there is some good outcome, Commissioner Hewitt, from all of the efforts in the park, the Forest Hills Playground. We have put in an application to adopt a park again, just to make it official with DPR, which seems to make them listen a little bit more. We also have created a group, which is really a program under Van Ness Main Street, but it's very grassroots because it's everyone it's people in the neighborhood, moms, grandparents, people whose kids have already, graduated out of the park, and it's called the Good, Clean, Fun Initiative. And yeah, they're the drivers behind this. So hopefully you know, we went like this, you know, out of friends, and now we're coming out of it. There is a Google group, and what I'll do is if anybody wants to email me at gloria@vansmainstreet.org, I will connect you so you can sign up. I think we have about 50 people signed up for the Google distribution list. So more exciting stuff to come, but I just wanted Commissioner Hewitt, Commissioner Chair Carlson, everyone who's been involved with the park this year, that, you know, hopefully we'll see a little bit of change coming out of it. The other thing with Van Ness Main Street, and more will come, but our board of directors approved pursuing an Urban Land Institute technical assistance panel, similar to what the Friendship Heights Alliance did in Friendship Heights. So more to come on that, but you will be you know, hearing more about it, and it's in partnership with the university, with all of our landowners. So it's a really good process. And the best part of it is that we're going to bring together independent visionary experts in urban development that will, you know, give us ideas, right? And hopefully generate some excitement and the same type of interest from developers that could complement also President Eddington's strategic plan, which we just mentioned, that includes housing. And so just more to come on that. So it's very exciting for us as a small Main Street to be able to pursue this. So you'll be hearing more about this. And the last thing is really for us, I know everybody keeps asking me about moms. I know that everybody, I am telling you, if I had $1 for every time I'm asked that, I would not be here this evening. But moms was reported by, self-reported to the Forest Hills Connection that they would be opening in February. And I did get another report from another source that it looks like June 2025. So why don't we say between February and June of 2025, moms may open. Whale Tea, though, Whale Tea is slated for December. I did also get an update on the doghouse, and hopefully maybe also early summer. So good news is that Rosedale opened, and it's fabulous. So stop on in, and you know, it's a really beautiful, beautiful location. And you know, we should be very proud to have Ashok Bajaj, you know, in the neighborhood. So now we have Bajaj and Trabacchio. I know they're a little more high end, but it just demonstrates you know, the strength of the neighborhood, right? And that we do have, we're in a transition, but let's just keep thinking, you know, positively. And then just remember that on December 14th, we're doing our holiday pop-up. We have nearly 30 vendors, and we're going to have singing princesses for all the younger kids who love a princess that sings. So again, thank you for all your support and for having me.
Gloria, watching out for the kids. You had Taylor Swift now
I know.
down
We
there to
had
the
the Taylor Swift dance
princesses.
party. I have to say that was one of the cutest things I've ever seen. It was more, you know, we had the parents singing up in the seats and the kids dancing on the stage. It was really cute. So
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's
Mhm.
like, I mean, it just makes everything so nice when those events are going on. I've had a lot of nice times going to the last couple times the book, the ex Libram has been there. I just, those events are really meaningful to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so Juanita Gray from UDC. Juanita, thank you for doing such a great task force meeting that the people who attended it insisted that you get extra time this week.
Well, between Commissioner Slatnick
This
and
month.
Gloria, I think they took all of my talking points. So we
No,
can continue. I'm just kidding.
gerontology.
I have actually
We've got more.
a few other things before
we're a
gerontology.
group. We're a team, Juanita. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just joking. But first, I do want to thank Commissioner Slatnick and Commissioner Hewitt for all of their hard work, all of the commissioners, of course, but those two who are stepping down. I appreciate everything that you've done for the university and hope that we can still continue to work together as you are still community members here in Van Ness. A couple of updates. So some of this is going to be a little bit long because I'm reading from what I received from some of like Javier Dusan, who's our VP of facilities and real estate, because I want to make sure people are getting the accurate information. And a lot of this is what I went over at my November 7th Community Campus Task Force meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Hewitt and Commissioner Slatnick, for joining us or joining me for that meeting. This is regarding DC Archives. Starting on November 12th, the DC Archives project contractor closed the B1 level, the mezzanine, and access to the public will be restricted to this section of the garage, which is directly under Building 41. The ramp leading up to the B1 level will remain open and accessible for parking. The barrier will be installed at the top of the ramp. This closing would allow the project to continue with the selective interior demolition and material abatement process currently underway. And he says to please note that the access to and exit from the garage is not going to be affected in this phase of the project. And from my understanding, that level only really affected a couple of faculty members who parked there. Really, no community member, I don't think, ever parked there, but he just wanted to make sure that the community was aware that that took place. And since I'm talking about the archives, I'll give a little bit of other information that was given from Brad King, who's with DGS. He attended the November 7th meeting and gave a few updates. So Gilbane Construction began the abatement phase of the construction in August and will continue through November. Demolition of Building 41 is planned for December, pending a better understanding of the abatement process. And I want to make sure everyone's clear, when we say demolition, the building is not going to just fall down like they do in Vegas when they blow up the buildings. I actually thought that would be cool if it did, but probably the community would not. So it's more like they're taking the building down bit by bit, not a big explosion in Van Ness. That would be bad. Gilbane has provided a website for the community updates and feedback portion and a feedback portal for questions, and I will put that website in the chat once I'm done. And then the DC Archives project will close the B1 level of the garage starting in November with further closures in January. So those were all of the updates on the DC Archives that happened at the November 7th meeting. Moving on.
Yeah, I didn't see any signs at dinner, so I figured I would just make something. You doing okay?
There's a hot mic, Maria, I believe.
Adrian, can you mute everybody?
Okay.
Except for Juanita.
Gloria gave the update on moms already, but I'll give a little bit more. The new elevator work is ongoing, interior work is ongoing, garage parking prep work, cleaning, painting, and stripping is ongoing. And then the exterior signage has been approved by the Commission of Fine Arts and is currently under permit review. Well T opening date, I think, as Gloria said, is going to be December. Doghouse construction drawings are approved by UDC. Drawings are under permit review and estimated opening later spring, summer of 2025. Let's see. Other retail spaces, 4340 Connecticut Avenue. Negotiations with potential tenant for that space that's currently occupied by Van Ness Main Street did not prosper, unfortunately. 4250 Connecticut Avenue, UDC is currently in negotiations with a potential tenant for the restaurant space on the northern side of 4250, which is where the old Asian restaurant used to be. I forget the name of it, but they were there back in 2014, 2015-ish, and then suddenly closed down. And then a student center is finalizing negotiations with the food and beverage franchise for the retail space in the student center, which if you've been into the student center, when you walk in past the front desk, there is a door. Right now they use it to store things, but that is actually a retail space. So they're in negotiations for that. And then there's some other information that I will just put in a chat. There's a lot of academic things that are happening on campus that we're very proud of. I sent some documents over to the commissioners. If you can share those, that would be great. If not, they will be on our website once I put them up there. And then last week was homecoming. We had a lot of great events. As Commissioner Slatnick talked about, the president's delivering on a promise. There's 3 pillars to that: excellence in student achievement, alignment with workforce needs, and the impactful community service. So President Eddington is very dedicated to being out in the community. He has been out in community since he first started day one back in August of last year. And he is doing great things. Now, if I'm allowed to share my screen, I'll go to get to the gerontology portion of this.
You should be able to share it.
Okay, I did ask for someone from, that's not gonna work. Zoom is asking me to shut down my computer to restart it to share the screen. So
Oh,
not gonna do
no.
that. But commissioners, I did send it to you all. If you can share it as I talk through it. It's the red gerontology brochure that I sent.
I see the force meeting and the CAO report. Oh, here, I see it.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I'm the worst person to share this. Hold on, sorry. Let's
Okay,
get started and I'll do. I'll get it.
Okay. So the brochure, it talks about the mission of the Institute of Gerontology, which is to help preserve the independence of District of Columbia residents and to support low-income and disabled people 60 years old and above with high-quality and compassionable volunteer service through our senior companion and respite aid programs. And then they go over their vision, mission, and goals. I'm not going to go over all that. You can see it once it's on the screen. But I did want to talk about the programs that they have. So they have a senior companion program. This touches the lives of adults who need extra assistance to live independently in their own homes and communities. The program serves frail older adults, adults with disabilities, and those with terminal illness. Senior companion assistants, senior companions assist their adult clients in basic but essential ways, offering companionship and friendship to isolated older adults, assisting with simple chores, providing transportation, and adding richness to their clients' lives. And then there's the Respite Aid Program. This program provides in-home assistance to seniors living alone. The program also provides support to caregivers. The service helps individuals and families deal with challenges of living independently in older adulthood. And then there's the Senior Tuition Program. The Senior Tuition Program normally required for students will be waived for, tuition and fees normally required for students will be waived for qualifying senior citizens. In order to qualify, applicants must be 65 years of age or older, residents of the District of Columbia, and admitted to the university. If a senior tuition student would like to obtain a degree, he or she is required to pay half of the tuition and fees set for the students in their program. Courses are available at the UDC Community College and Van Ness campus. And then lastly, there's the Body Wise and Fitness program. So this is a health, fitness, and wellness activities for seniors 60 years and above. In a District of Columbia, the Body Wise Fitness and Health program, some of the benefits may include increase in participants' cardiovascular efficiency, improve muscular strength and flexibility, increase physical activity. The Body Wise program consists of water aerobics, yoga, low impact aerobics, movement share exercises, and classes are conducted by certified instructors. So the ones that take place, there's actually Body Wise, this is not something that's just UDC, it's actually happening all over the district. And in that brochure, they have all of the locations and the activities that are happening. But at UDC specifically, on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9:30 to 10:30, in the Student Center, Wellness Center, they have low impact aerobics. And then they have on Mondays and Fridays from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. yoga classes. And I know they have some aquatic classes, but we may not
We
have.
can post this, I think, on our website, and so anybody can get all this information. I wasn't
Yeah.
able to post it in the chat. I hope you guys can see this. Can you see my screen?
I'll also, I'll put in, excuse me, let me see if I can get back here. I will put into the chat a link that will take people to the brochure as well.
Oh, great.
But
Okay, thanks.
yeah, all of these activities are open to anyone 60, 65 and above. This is the interesting thing about Body Wise. The people who know about it, and we have a lot of participation because I see the seniors in our buildings and the student center all the time going to them. But I think it was one of those situations where people who know tell people, other people, their friends, and not necessarily everyone in the community has known about it. So we do want people to participate. It's a great program. I will put one of the coordinators' information in a chat as well. And because she couldn't make it tonight, she did say that if anyone had questions, they could call her, email her, or call her directly, and she would be happy to give them that information. And her name is, what is her name? I wrote it down on all these millions of papers I have right here. Pamela Williams. She's the project manager for the Center of Nutrition and Diet and Health Institute of Gerontology here at the university. So I will put all of her contact information in the chat for anyone who wants more information about any of their gerontology program activities. So that is what I have for today.
Thank you, Juanita.
Great.
And if anyone has any
Thank you so
questions,
much.
I'm happy to answer them, but I'm going to try to put as much information in the chat as possible.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you. I put the information from below. I was able to copy the contact information for the Institute of Gerontology, where you will be able to get that schedule of activities, which looks great. Thank you so much, Juanita, and thanks for agreeing to get a little more in depth with us this month, and for all you do for the university and the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to go to the mayor's office. Kendall Gibson is our new mayor's office of community relations manager for Ward 3. Kendall, are you here? I spoke to her the other day. So if she is not here, we will move straight into community announcements. Sorry, Owen Cox. Sorry, Owen. So you're our actual moker. And Kendall said she was coming, but I'm happy to see you. Sorry about that.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we decided to divvy up the ANC meetings between ourselves. So she's taking some, I'm taking some. But it's very good to meet everyone. I believe I spoke with some of the commissioners just last week. But nice to meet you. My name is Owen Cox. I am the Ward 3 liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. So my role is to help connect residents of Ward 3 to the services in the mayor's office. And anyone can reach out to me if there are any issues that they want to raise, or if, say, there's a 311 request that hasn't been dealt with in the time that is given on the 311 website, they can pass those along. We can see if we can escalate them. And hopefully we'll see you around. Me and my manager, Kendall, do sweeps of neighborhoods. So we are on the ground 3 days a week looking for any issues that we can flag. But if you come and see us, usually we're wearing a green polo with the mayor's office on it. So if you see us, please say hello. And also I'll add my and Kendall's info into the chat right now.
Thank you. So now we're going to move on to community announcements. If anyone has anyone from the community has any questions or anything that you want to announce, we're happy to hear you now. And if there aren't, we're going to move to the Office of Attorney General. Damon King is going to speak to the SAFE Act. Eamon, are you here? I saw some other folks from your office. Actually, and in the meantime, while we find you, we'll go to Will Jolly.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I represent Howard University's School of Law, or the West Campus of Howard University. Just wanted to introduce myself and say hello to everyone. I am a graduate of Howard Law School and am originally from Ward 4. I'm from across the Rock Creek Park from you guys. I'm from where Georgia Avenue and Missouri connect, and just proud to be a representative of the university. So if I can ever be of help, you can email me at William, WILLIAM.JOLLEY@howard.edu. And I had had the pleasure of working with Miss Marilyn Slotnick during the time that she represented that area, and wish her the best. And just thank you all for the time and this informative meeting. So look forward to talking with you all soon. And if I can be of help, please email me and let me know.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that communication. And I know Marilyn's kept really good records to pass that on to that part of her SMD to the next commissioner as well. Thank you. Is it Bonnie?
Excuse
Oops,
my
hold on,
delay.
you're
I
muted.
just have to unmute people, which is a change.
Okay. Yes, thank you. I'm Bonnie Politz, and I live in Van Ness North on VZ Terrace, and we've been trying, several of us, to get in touch between the Department of Motor Vehicles and the Department of Transportation about the amount of illegal parking on VZ Terrace off of Connecticut Avenue, across from UDC, the corner where the old Walgreens is. The Go Puff people, park there to go in and pick up their packages, but many times people are also parking to wait for Metro, and there's sometimes illegal parking on both sides of the street where if we needed a fire engine or an ambulance or whatever to get through, it would not be able to. And even two-way traffic is not available because of all the illegal parking. So I just wanted to raise this to Owen and others to see if there's something that could be done. The signage is terrible and the enforcement has been none. So that's it.
Adrian, is that your SMD? Can you follow up on that? Or
Yes,
I'm not
that
sure.
is. Yeah, was it right? Yeah, it is. Must be.
I've noticed that as well, actually, when I was picking someone up from the Metro, so sorry. But yeah, I was not the only one doing that. So we'll follow up, and Adrian will get back to you on that. Thanks for bringing it to the attention. I know we've heard about that in the past as well, from other community members. Emily Teitelbaum.
Hi, can you hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much to the committee for having me and allowing me to speak. I had been in touch this morning with some of the parent leaders at Merch. My daughter is a kindergartner at Merch, and I live at Ingomar and 41st Street. And I have observed some very, very concerning behavior over the last 2 years, especially post-COVID at Merch, midway between Ellicott, where there's a crosswalk that's unmanned. I don't believe that there's a speed bump or anything there either. But my daughter and son went to the Montessori school. It's a preschool across the street. And then as they were crossing the street to go to Merch, I've noticed more and more people are just haphazardly pulling over, blocking the intersection so that you can't really see when small children are passing. And then more and more children are getting out down the street and they are going without an adult across that crosswalk. And it's a very dangerous situation where I've seen very small children going across by themselves and running at the last minute because they don't want to be late for school. And I do think there needs to be some kind of remedy. So I have written a letter and sent it to 311. I've also, Paul just emailed you. Thank you very much for your information. And I want to be part of that. And I just want to be an advocate.
Oops, Emily, we lost you. Emily, if you can still hear us, Commissioner David is your SMD commissioner on this. So Commissioner
Emily has actually
David.
dropped out, unfortunately.
Oh, she's out. Okay. Well, Commissioner David, can you follow up with her? I know I was on a chain of emails with her this morning from some of the merch HSA where Marilyn and I have been to the meetings before, but if you can follow up on her issues.
Can I just ask a question?
She's not on, but yeah, if we
Thanks.
yeah.
It just wasn't clear. Is she referring to that block on Ellicott that's at
The
the
mid crosswalk, the
Right.
crosswalk mid block between St. Paul's Lutheran Church and Merch. So when
Yeah.
my kids were at Merch, there used to be actually kids were crossing guards there. They stopped having kids be crossing guards because drivers were yelling at
It's
kids.
too dangerous, yeah. I would say I actually make a left before I go, because that intersection, I concur, there's a lot of foot traffic, but there are a lot of cars, from what I can see, not local, not DC tags often, going through quite quickly. And I'm yeah, anyhow, I know she's in touch with Paul, so he'll help, and Claudette to help to get that solved. Thank you.
Sorry, Claudette. I think because you weren't on at the beginning, I didn't make you a co-host, so that's why you couldn't unmute yourself. Apologies.
I don't see anyone as a co-host, but since you
Everybody was at the beginning. All of us are co-hosts.
I don't see that. But if you can just send me her contact, because she's been talking to you, so I
Just
don't know
today.
anything.
I just was copied on an email today, and then I heard what she said today. And just because you're her actual commissioner, I thought. So we're now going to go on. I think we have Damon King now.
Yes. So hi,
Thank you so
everyone.
much for being here.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me. And I'm here with my colleague Zania Laws, who is our special counsel for nuisance abatement here at OAG. I'm a policy advisor at OAG. And we really appreciate the chance to talk to all of you about OAG's legislation around security in apartment complexes. The legislation is called the Secure Apartments for Everyone Amendment Act, or the SAFE Act for short. We introduced it in July, and it has just been scheduled for a hearing at the DC Council on December 10th. So we want to talk to you a little bit about the legislation, and we are really hopeful that folks will come out and testify in support of the legislation. I'm going to share my screen in a moment and start a brief PowerPoint that's going to go through what the Act does. I think the big thing that we want you to take away from this is that the Act takes a comprehensive approach to dealing with security problems in apartment complexes across the district. It combines prevention with early response, as well as some changes to the Nuisance Act, which is the main tool that OAG has to deal with these types of issues. And the hope is that if the Act passes, it'll equip the district with the tools it needs to address situations in which people feel unsafe in their apartment buildings and apartment communities, regardless of the level of security need that might exist at a specific building. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in a moment. So can everyone see the title page, the PowerPoint? Great.
Yes, thank you very much.
So we'll go ahead and get into it. So just a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. We're going to do a quick review of the tools available currently to OAG to deal with situations in which there are safety and security issues at rental properties. That's mainly going to be the Drug, Firearm, and Prostitution-Related Nuisance Act, or the Nuisance Act for short. We'll talk about how we use it, as well as the strengths and weaknesses of it. We're going to use that to then transition into talking about what the SAFE Act does. The SAFE Act the way we've structured it, it makes some changes to the Nuisance Act, but more importantly, it adds some new tools that are meant to kick in before the Nuisance Act needs to be used, so that hopefully properties don't have to deteriorate security-wise before they are addressed. We'll talk briefly as part of that overview about the SAFE Act. We'll talk briefly about the hearing that's coming up on December 10th and how you guys can get involved if you are interested. And then we'll open it up for questions and give folks a chance to ask questions either about the act or the process. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Zania, who's going to talk about how OAG currently uses the Nuisance Act.
Thank you, Damon, and good night, everyone. As Damon said, my name is Zania Laws, and Special Counsel for Nuisance Abatement, and I'll talk a bit about the law currently as it is. This act, the Drug, Firearm, or Prostitution-related Nuisance Abatement Act, is like what we use primarily, well, at our office when we hear about like safety concerns when it comes to buildings or businesses. This is our primary tool for dealing with security issues at the moment. When we, it's like a very high threshold for a building to be considered a nuisance. I know that we hear the word a lot. I heard someone use that word tonight, but that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a building, whether it's a business or, you know, a home or apartment that's being used to facilitate prostitution, to unlawfully store or keep firearms, or that is being used for the sale or manufacture of controlled substances. So it is very limited to what it can do, and we're looking at the Nuisance Act if there's like an extreme security situation at a building. We can go to the next slide. So what we do, I will talk a bit about like how we investigate these cases and how we get these cases from referrals from community members, ANCs, our other partners, our MPD and others. We get these referrals and we want to look, well, first we would like for the person or, you know, that's referring with knowledge of what this act does, you know, if there are incidents like at a property, to refer it to us. And we would look at the MPD like database where their like incident reports are, to see if within a certain period of time, if there have been these incidents of weapons or guns like stored on the property, or drugs, or prostitution, but we don't really get a lot of complaints about that or focus on that much. So once we see that a property is meeting like the definition, like within the act, then we would reach out to the property owner and inform them that we're, you know, investigating the property. And at that moment, within the statute, that's one of the first steps that we have to take. We can't immediately file a case in court. We have to give them notice that, you know, the property is being looked at as a nuisance. And usually what happens is in a lot of those cases, we end up working with the property owner to resolve the issues and abate the nuisance without the need for litigation. And that could be different security measures like lighting, special police officers, cameras, or, you know, things of that sort that would address sort of like the issues that are going on. And we do rely on MPD a lot as well to do like walkthroughs of those properties and help us identify things, even like environmental design that would help with, you know, getting rid or, well, abating the nuisance. But if the property owner does not respond, then we will file a case in court, a complaint. So that sort of like gets us a little bit closer to the SAFE Act, because there are like advantages and disadvantages to the Nuisance Act. So the advantages, as I said, like we can pressure landlords to make improvements. We have the ability to like work on those things together, and they'll sign an agreement, and we'll monitor their compliance to make sure that they are doing what they agreed to do. And this is just an important tool for us to address properties that are having these safety concerns. But of course, the negative is that it's not preventative. We're more reacting to issues like as they occur. So if we get notification that there was a murder like at a building, then we're responding to it at that point. And the Nuisance Act is going to take time. So if we're able to resolve it by settling the case. Like, of course, that could happen a bit faster, but if we have to litigate it, that takes a very long time. So there are also crimes that the Nuisance Act doesn't cover. So we discussed weapons being stored on the property, but like the SAFE Act, as Damon will explain, will expand that definition so that when more like violent crimes are happening on a property, whether or not those weapons are being stored or the drugs are being manufactured or stored on the property, then we still have some tools to deal with safety concerns and issues at the properties.
So now we're going to transition into talking about the legislation and what it does. I think, and I should have said this at the top, we introduced this legislation because over an extended period of time, we have been hearing concerns from folks in communities in different parts of the district, including in Ward 3, about situations in which folks just don't feel safe in their homes and in their communities, and situations in which really there have been security failures at apartment complexes. We want to take this seriously and we want to take it in hand. As Zania has highlighted, the Nuisance Act is a really important tool for us, but unfortunately, it's a tool that tends to be more useful sort of further downstream when there have been an accumulation of security and safety issues. And so if we want to really make the district's apartment buildings safer for folks, it's crucial that the district has the tools to address problems further upstream, to be able to, take measures to secure buildings before they deteriorate into nuisances. And so that's what the SAFE Act tries to do. So it requires landlords to take common sense preventative steps to secure properties, and we'll talk about what that looks like in a moment. It mandates a government agency response when there are early signs of security problems at a building. And then it does take some steps to improve the Nuisance Act, including addressing some of the limitations of the Nuisance Act with respect to firearms. And this slide gets into a little bit more specifics. So in terms of preventative measures, the Act amends the DC Property Maintenance Code to add additional language around what we view as, again, common sense security measures. These amendments would apply to buildings with 5 units or more. It's just a recognition that there's a difference in the district between some of the smaller rental properties and some of the larger ones. Specifically in terms of those amendments, we would add language requiring that all exterior doors to the rental property be both self-closing and self-locking. This is meant to prevent unauthorized access to buildings. And then also, we add some requirements around lighting at exterior doors, specifically lighting and specifically minimum standards with respect to brightness and also duration, a requirement that lights stay on at from sundown to sunup the next morning. And the goal there is to deter criminal activity around entrances to rental properties, to apartment buildings, and also to just make people feel safer entering and exiting buildings because they can see what's going on. So that's the prevention piece of the SAFE Act. The early response piece is a process that we are calling the security assessment process. And essentially what it would do is it would require that upon certain triggering events, the Department of Buildings would go out to a property, lay eyes on it, and do a security assessment to determine what needs to change in that building in order to make it more secure. DOB, after doing that assessment, would issue a report. The report would be shared with the building's tenant association, the local ANC in which the building is located, the ward council member where the building is located, as well as the Office of the Tenant Advocate and OAG. So there would be a number of eyes on the property, sort of looking at what's recommended. I will say the way the bill is written right now, security assessment recommendations would be non-binding. They would be voluntary. But our hope is that if there are a number of folks sort of with eyes on the property who know that these recommendations are being made, that will help motivate the landlord to address some of those issues and implement the recommendations. Finally, and I should say, right now as the bill is drafted, we have certain triggers that would trigger a security assessment. We think that as we sort of continue to talk about the bill with the council, that these triggers might change, but right now, these are the things that we think are proxies for sort of early signs of security problems. So 2 seizures of controlled substances in a 3-month period, 2 seizures of firearms in a 6-month period, or 2 arrests for crimes of violence or dangerous crimes in a 6-month period. So that is the security assessment piece, that early response piece of the legislation. And then finally, we make some changes to the Nuisance Act itself. I think the most important thing for folks to know here in terms of those changes is that we would slightly broaden the definition of a nuisance within the Nuisance Act. So Zania mentioned as she talked about the Nuisance Act that with respect to firearms, the definition is written around firearms being stored or kept at a property. That creates problems when there is a shooting, but a gun isn't recovered at the property. And so we want to take steps to address that limitation of the Nuisance Act. And what we would do is redefine a nuisance to include any property that experiences a crime of violence or dangerous crime involving a firearm. We also make some other changes that would kick in situations in which we do engage in Nuisance Act litigation, specifically having created this security assessment process that would be triggered by certain external events. We want to also give ourselves the ability to ask the court to order security assessments if we are in litigation. The idea is that recommendations coming out of those assessments would help to shape better relief, a better set of orders around what improvements landlords should make. We also create a standard for situations in which we as OAG might be asking the court to order private security at a building, but where the landlord is saying that they can't afford it. That is something that we know can be a point of contention with landlords, and so we provide guidance as to how the court should handle those situations. And then finally, we provide some clarity around daily damages for unabated nuisances. The Nuisance Act already provides for daily damages for nuisances that go unabated, but we provide in this legislation for maximum daily damage amounts, which we think should make it easier to calculate damages if we are in a situation in which we get involved in litigation. So we'll talk briefly about the hearing. So as I said, the hearing is on December 10th at 11:30 a.m. The bill is going to be heard by 2 committees simultaneously. So the Committee of the Whole, which has oversight over the Department of Buildings, will have the authority to hear and mark up the bill. The hearing will also be sort of co-conducted by the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. The Judiciary Committee, as you guys know, deals with public safety issues more broadly. It is also the committee that oversees OAG. You can see a little bit more information on the committee lineups on this slide itself. The COW is chaired by Chairman Mendelson. The Judiciary Committee, as you guys know, is chaired by Councilmember Brooke Pinto. These are the committee members of the Judiciary Committee, and the Committee of the Whole contains all 13 members. We would really, really appreciate it if folks would come out and testify in support of the SAFE Act. It is going to be crucially important if this legislation is going to move forward for council members to hear from community members who are affected by these security issues. It's going to be really important for folks to make the case to the council that it should continue to consider this legislation as we move through the end of the year and into the new council period in 2025. And it's also important to the extent that folks have feedback on the legislation, things that they think the council should do to strengthen the legislation, that the council be able to hear from folks as well. This slide contains a link to the hearing management system page on the council's website, which you can use to sign up to testify. We're also going to drop that link in the chat.
And just put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Commissioner. You can testify either in person or virtually through Zoom. If for some reason you're unable to make the hearing, I know that it might be at an inconvenient time because it's in the middle of the day. You can also submit written testimony via that same link. or you could call this phone number that's on the slide and leave testimony via voicemail. But we really think it's going to be important to get strong numbers, a strong turnout among tenants to talk about this legislation. I think that's going to be the way forward. If you have any questions after this meeting, you can feel free to reach out to me. This is my contact information. I'm happy to talk about the act. I'm happy to hear your feedback. I'm happy to talk to you as you sort of prepare to testify at the hearing. Anything that I can do to sort of make sure that you feel comfortable in the knowledge of the bill, and also make sure that you feel equipped to testify, I'm happy to do it. So I'm going to unshare my screen now, turn back on my video, and I'm
Thank
happy
you
to
so much. I'm guessing people have questions. I want to just ask a quick one first. On the SAFE Act elements, it requires DOB to perform a security assessment and issue a report recommending security improvements when the following triggers are met. What's the timeline for that? How soon does DOB need to do that security assessment? Or are they required? Is there a timeline? Because that would be something I think would be really
Sure.
helpful.
So that's a really good question. As the bill is currently written, I believe there's a 30-day time frame for DOB to go out and to issue the report. I think that I think from our perspective, we want to make sure that folks from DOB do get out there, as soon as possible. One of our goals with this security assessment really is to make sure that it moves faster than the nuisance investigation process would, because as Zania highlighted, the Nuisance Act, while very important as a tool, is not necessarily the tool that's going to get sort of improvements implemented quickly.
Right, I agree. Thank you so much. I'm going to let Commissioner Hewitt lead us off here. She has been really involved in this issue. Terry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. King. Thank you, Ms. Zinil. Please tell me your last name again.
Laws.
Laws. Thank you, Ms. Laws. So, is there a link to this legislation to begin with?
Absolutely. Let me pull it up now.
Can you drop it in the link in the chat, please?
Absolutely.
So
I was joking with Mr. King, Terry, that I've tried to read the legislation and I far preferred his PowerPoint.
Most legislations prefer the PowerPoint always. I have a few questions, and so I live in a large apartment building, and I'm very fortunate that I have property management that's responsive, but I know other buildings not necessarily the case. So when you talk about firearms, does a firearm need to discharge for this to occur, or is it simply the possession of it, maybe in relationship to another, maybe a domestic violent case or something? What's the premise?
So I would want to look specifically at the language. The way it's drafted, the nuisance definition would include all crimes of violence and dangerous crimes, which are defined in statute, that involve a firearm. I know that unlawful discharge is one of those offenses.
Yeah, it is.
But I would have to look back and see if it extends.
I'm just curious to know what triggers the law, because domestic abuse could, but also could not. So it depends on how you describe it, because I think it's really important to know what the jumping off point is. I think it's also, living in, whether you live in a single domicile and you live next to a large property, or like myself, live in one, there's lots of pushes and pulls that go on every moment of the day, so I think it's really important to understand the premise, because anyhow, that's a rabbit hole I could go down, but I won't. So the other is, you talk about doors being locked, which I think is very important, especially I look back on the active shooter we had at the Edmund Burke, and I had residents, this is before I was a commissioner, who were calling me saying, hey, our building won't lock the doors. And it actually was amazing because my building, they locked the doors, they secured the staff, they'd moved the staff to a low, a safe place, and they constantly updated us every 15 to 30 minutes, but most buildings didn't. And I do think that when it comes to safe space, there should be a standard for all buildings to be applied to. So you lock the doors. Specifically, how do you lock the doors? What type of device do you need? Because I think if it's just general that you want it locked, I think you're set. It's not helping the community if it's not specific enough to protect. That's one. Two is there anything legislation about cameras?
So I will say, first of all, on your point regarding sort of more specificity around locks, I think that's something that we absolutely would love to hear, or would love for that to be shared with the council via testimony. We started out from a certain place, based on regulations in other jurisdictions. That self-closing, self-locking language, I believe, comes from Massachusetts. And so we use that as a starting point. But to the extent that it would be helpful to have the language be more specific, we're definitely open to that and thinking through that. And it would be shared testimony.
Sure, and I would recommend, and I plan to testify as well, but I would also recommend you look at Avalon Bay, the property, because they have very specific language for all of they own 4,000-5,000 properties across the country. And they own, I think right here in DC, it's a couple dozen, but in our area, I think there's 3 that are owned by Avalon Bay. So they're very specific about cameras, camera placement, how you record it, how you store the video. And to me, that's important because being in my neighborhood, again, before being a commissioner, there was an active shooting. Not active shooting. There were people driving around with a gun in their car and police were looking for them. So there were SWAT teams in the area. They did find them, but that was mainly because they happened to run across my building. I just happened to see them. The police came in and they looked at the video. And that was one of the comments they made, is that it helped. They were glad they came by our building because they know it's one of the few buildings that had such comprehensive video. So I think it's important to specify these things, because if you're going to protect people, then protect people. And if it's also, the flip side is there's an issue when you can see what's going on and you can build a case in court, you're also protecting people. I'm speaking to the choir because you're a lawyer. I get that. But I also find that bad legislation is well-intended, but it ends up being, it's useless. And then it creates a sore eye for whoever created it. So let's try to avoid that, because cameras are very important, not just at doors, but various parts of the building, various angles, and it protects the people who live in houses. I think it helps the community as a whole. And I know I'm speaking to the choir, but when I heard your presentation, I thought this is great and wonderful, but then I'm like, wait a minute, where are the details to this? So I won't go, I could go on, so I won't. But there are so many things that stood out for me.
Well, Commissioner Hewitt, we really, really appreciate all of this. And I would love, I'll speak to cameras in a second, but I would also love to have some further conversations with you offline.
Sure.
I think the feedback you're providing is very helpful as we go in. Just to speak quickly to cameras, security cameras, I think, were one of the specific things that we were thinking about when we drafted the security assessment portion of the bill. I think, we considered a number of things when we were sort of writing those universal or near universal preventative sort of property maintenance code amendments in the bill. I think what we realized is that there were some security measures where it really made sense for the building owners and DOB to be informed by an individualized assessment of the property. So like in the case of cameras, we sort of wanted to make sure that somebody was going out and saying, okay, where's it most beneficial to have cameras positioned? I point about types of cameras. I think it's one of those things where we absolutely are thinking about it, And I think we just thought about it as something that flowed naturally from the security assessment portion. But
No.
again, I think this is something where we definitely want to hear more from folks.
I would say I'm very conscious about coming into my garage, and our building actually installed cameras in the garages. We have 2 large garages. I think that that is a mistake to not consider those smaller places, because those are where crimes do occur, and we do have crimes that are documented where people come in and steal in garage and so forth, and goes on.
I want to get to questions because we're getting close to when people turn into pumpkins. Do we have other commissioners from commissioners? If not, I'm going to move right to Leroy. Mr. Pikes.
Yes, like Commissioner Hewitt, I'm gonna keep it short because I could go down a rabbit hole with this one. But first
I think we want you to go on down a rabbit hole in general. Yeah, we
Feedback
do.
is good.
Just
Feedback is good.
not right this second, keep it short, but in general, I think the purpose of this, like, please, I think we want everybody who's been on this issue and in this issue and near this issue, please, if I may, call the OAG.
Yes.
Please provide your feedback. This is, I think, something that will be a really great tool for the OAG, and it's really going to help. So I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to validate your both of your rabbit holes.
Thank you. I think the first place to start is I was trying to process a center for this. First of all, I'm definitely glad to hear from you all. Me and Courtney were actually talking about this earlier. I'm definitely glad to hear from you all. I wish you all were here in the middle of this 6 months to a year ago, when Connecticut House are now and has been right dead smack in the middle of all this mess, prostitution, guns, and drugs. I think the biggest question I have is the coordination of. Okay, let me kind of backtrack. So from talking to DC Police, Sergeant Forrest, and a bunch of other, there is how you put it, there's a whole process in doing these investigations. And we can't go knocking down doors where drugs or firearms may be. So the major question is, as good as this sounds, I mean, it is. Actually, there's 2 questions. So I'm thinking as I'm talking. How do you coordinate with the police or do more than they can? Because I mean, you're not the police. So to do investigations, you have to be able to dig into where all the things are taking place, see the guns, see the violence, see the prostitution to some extent, in the process of investigation. And the second part to it is, I feel like, and it sounds like, I guess I'm hoping that these things can be amended from the parameters that you've used in this presentation. It sounds good as a basis, but it doesn't sound intense enough, meaning there are drug and gun problems, not 3 times every 6 months, but 3 times every couple weeks. Yeah, so it's like, I understand the logic in it. Like, okay, yeah, where there's violence, but this is something like the police are called here, the Connecticut House, probably, I almost want to say once a day, or at least twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. Like, for an example, just a small situation, we had the police were called on 2 kids that were locked out of their apartment because their mother is prostituting. So we have, on average, 5 to 10 police cars at least every week. So I'm like, it just sounds like I'm just spitballing, but it sounds like, unless you're in the middle of this mess, it's like, unless you feel the intensity of it or see the police or SWAT teams at your front door when you're coming home, I know you're putting out the feels like, okay, we know there's violence, but do you understand, like, unless you're in the middle of a gunfight, do you understand the magnitude of what nuisance really is? Like, how it's
Mr.
really
Pikes
affecting
you're the new president of the Tenants Association, is that right? Or you're a longtime member of the Tenants Association? You're the president now. So this is like a firsthand knowledge of exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and so we've been talking about nuisance. I mean, I'm gonna shut up in a minute. We've been talking about this for the past 2 years. So I'm grateful for it all coming out, and I'm definitely gonna try and testify. But we've had some people put out, we've had restraining orders, we've had what do you call it? The people put out from restraining orders, because a lot of what's happening with the domestic violence situations is, these girls are bringing their boyfriends with criminal records into the building to live with them, and they're causing problems. I'll just keep it short in a nutshell. And so to prove that, all this stuff is going on, to investigate, you have to have evidence. We're slowly getting things together, but because we have residents that are scared of situations, scared to be out in the forefront, is just not an easy situation, as you can imagine. So, like I said, the basis is amazing. But there's a reality of coordinating. I know you'll be working with the police, but just all the paperwork, investigations, dealing with the police can only do certain things unless they're within a situation. So how do you make that connection when we still have to investigate and all that? So I'm gonna leave it right there.
No,
Thank you so much. That's such a good question.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate that question. So there are a couple of things that I would say, just as sort of a jumping off point. So first of all, the way that we've drafted those security assessment triggers, they absolutely would depend on information being available about criminal activity at properties. We're having conversations with both DOB and MPD, just around how those triggers are drafted, and how that, how to make sure that ultimately, when in the final legislation, we end up with security assessments that have triggers that are sort of straightforward to implement and are feasible. So we want to make sure that we have triggers that work. One thing to flag, just in terms of the frequency, there is that, all that stuff in the legislation around things happening twice in 3 months or twice in 6 months, that's meant to be the floor. So we absolutely appreciate that there are situations at properties in which incidents may be happening much, much more often. What we wanted to do is capture a wide enough net, so that, or to cast a wide enough net, I should say, so that, for the properties that are just starting to enter into sort of problematic conditions, we get them early, so that it doesn't get to the point where you've got incidents happening 2-3 times a week. We want to get it before it gets to that point. I think in the course of getting those properties, we would also capture properties where incidents are more frequent, because if something is happening 2-3 times a week, by definition, it fits into the 2-3 times a month, two times every 3 months trigger. But our goal really is to sort of break this cycle, where potentially you can have a property where incidents start off less frequently, and they get more and more and more frequent because they are not being checked or addressed.
Can I jump in? So in a property like Connecticut House, where Mr. Fikes lives, then how does that pop right on in here, since we already know these incidents are happening very frequently? So it starts on your radar as soon as this act should this act become law, then these buildings where you don't have to wait for I mean, I know this prevents future problems, but we already have the problem. So how do you start with us? Like, would this be, you have the 30-day trigger on going into Connecticut, where DOB has to go into Connecticut House, and before the security assessment starts on day 1 of this bill becoming a law?
So when the bill becomes law, and when it actually goes into effect,
Oh, right.
I think the idea,
Schoolhouse Rock,
yeah,
right.
Yes, Schoolhouse Rock plus DC not being a state, unfortunately. But when this goes into effect, I do think the idea is going forward, as you see trends in events, buildings would hit those triggers. Again, I want to be sort of careful here because I do think the triggers that we've got drafted at introduction may not be the specific triggers that we end up with. But the idea is generally that, if you have a building that is already sort of experiencing problems with high levels of frequency, that when the bill goes into effect, you're able to start counting. And I think relatively quickly, hopefully, that building would hit the trigger, and then you get the security assessment following shortly after.
And I wanted to add, like, what I can add my contact information to the chat as well, but if you wanted to reach out and talk to me like separately about that, because I mean, while we do have this like legislation, we do still have like the nuisance act as it is. And just like looking at this, property just to see if it meets like that definition. And I know you were talking about the investigations, but like what we're looking at, like if we grabbed like maybe like the last 6 months or so, or, could vary, but we're not really looking at like those domestic like issues that are going on. But we're like, as we explained, like the drugs and guns and things like stored like on the property, like that is what we would be looking at. And what we're looking at is like police reports that already exist. I mean, and even like the MPD investigations can be ongoing, but that doesn't stop us from like doing what we need to do for the case, because we're looking at other elements as well. We're looking at the adverse impact on the community, and that can be supported by statements like from like ANCs or residents or like others who like live in the building. So there's, and like MPD as well, like their experience with that building, like what they've seen, what they've observed, like the incidents that have happened there. So we have like a lot to build off of, like absent of like doing like a deep, like I know you're talking about the investigations, that doesn't stop us but it gives us like that prerequisite, like, okay, this is meeting that we're triggered by like the nuisance act just because these incidents are happening here. But what we can do, like starting, is just like looking at like the police reports just to see if it, would support
Oh, we got plenty of those. Plenty of
Yeah,
those.
so we'll circle back. Let's circle
Okay.
back and with you on this. Commissioner Hewitt and then Karen, and then unfortunately we have to move on after that.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Laws, actually, the building, Connecticut House, was identified as a nuisance building for your records. I would be also interested to know why the Department of Housing is not part of this process for investigative work. DOB has a lower threshold for applying a fine, where Department of Housing has a much higher threshold. And I would also, and I guess what I'll do is I'll reach out to you, because as I said, I have lots of questions from the very beginning of this bill process and through. But I would be curious to know why the Department of Housing is not part of that bill. I think it's an oversight. It needs to be, they need to be part and tandem in that bill. But I'm curious to know your thinking. Thank you.
Sure. So I can take that as and sort of talk through a little bit of our thinking. I think one of the challenges that we encountered in drafting the legislation is that for the security assessment piece in particular, it's going to require a combination of different sort of pieces of knowledge, or combination of different areas of expertise, right? You need folks who know buildings and the physical features of buildings very well. You'll need folks who know security very well, and you'll need folks who sort of know community very well. What we ultimately determined is that it made sense to start with DOB because they do have that knowledge of sort of the physical structure of buildings as well as the regulations regarding the physical structure of buildings. And so if we are focusing on making physical changes to buildings, whether those are cameras, lighting, door locks, fencing, those kinds of things, that DOB sort of made sense as a starting point. I think that, ultimately, if this bill is passed, and funded. Part of implementation is going to be ensuring that, DOB sort of has folks in place who can bring that other knowledge that is necessary in order to conduct those security assessments successfully. And that might look like hiring sort of dedicated staff with specific expertise around security. It might look like contracting, or it might look like collaboration with other agencies within the executive branch. But we figured we would start with folks who understand sort of the physical plant of buildings and physical changes that would need to be made. And hopefully, as part of implementation, you work to sort of add those other pieces of relevant expertise in.
Thanks. Karen.
Oh.
Yes, thank you
Go ahead.
very much. Okay. Couple of points. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you, Courtney and other ANC members for continuing to have a focus on this topic. I live at Sedgwick Gardens, which has all of the problems that Matthew Fikes mentioned, the drug use and drug manufacture on the property, prostitution, violent incidents. I'm sure you know that a 1-year-old child was found bludgeoned to death in one of the apartments of our building, I guess at this point, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago. So the first thing, just to comment on the security cameras, it took tremendous pressure to get Borgia management to add a security camera for the parking lot. We don't have indoor parking. We have an outdoor parking lot. And for a long time, there have been cameras in a couple of other places inside. But so much goes on in the parking lot. And so they finally added a camera in the parking lot. I worry that there is not sufficient knowledge on the part of management about how to review the footage and how to save the footage. And I have also heard that only management can view the footage. So if there's an incident at night when management isn't here, the police cannot review the footage. This is a real problem. So I want to bring that to your attention. Now, I want to let you know that the Housing Committee, which is not directly involved in this bill, but I'm making a connection here. The Housing Committee does a terrible job of publicizing their hearings and roundtables. I might not even know that there's a deadline to volunteer to testify until the last day that I could register to testify. And I have talked to them repeatedly about this. They have an extremely narrow view of what I would call the public right to know. They work for the public, and they just let tiny bits of information about their hearings out to these small pre-selected groups. I will just say.
So Karen, we need to stay on topic because we've also requested a hearing with them, but
here's the topic.
This is OAG, so he doesn't have any say there.
Here's the topic. Please, Mr. King, contact Chair Mendelson and Council Member Pinto to make sure that there is the broadest possible publicity for this hearing. That means putting out a blast through the Office of the Tenant Advocate That means having council members in their newsletters put out information. Hey, guys, there's this hearing coming up about things that affect you very directly. If you want to testify, do X. And finally, the third thing, just to mention, Mr. King, is I arrived a little late for the meeting. Was information updated about what has happened with the killings of the 2 children in Ward 3, one in my building, Sedgwick Gardens, the other at Connecticut House?
So I will just say, first of all, you know, the loss of those 2 children is it's an
Horrific.
incredibly horrific. It's a terrible and unimaginable tragedy.
But what are the police really doing? It's like there's a silence from them.
So I think from our agency, unfortunately, there isn't sort of an update we can share to the extent that, you know, there is prosecution going on around those incidents.
There is prosecution? Okay.
Yes, well, to the extent that there is, I know in the case of the 5-year-old, I know that there is prosecution going on, and that's being handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office. We have limited jurisdiction when it comes to prosecution here in the district, another unfortunate reality of our status. So there isn't anything that I can share at the moment, but I think we share, you know, your sense of horror and just sadness at what has occurred.
Let me
Children.
Let me just say very quickly, the police knew 1 or 2 days after the killings, very significant pieces of information. They took the father of the 5-year-old boy who died into custody. They arrested him, and then they let him go pending the trial. He has 2 daughters who live with him. I mean, why would you let a father go who's suspected of killing his son when there are 2 other young people in the household? I just cannot get my mind around it. And in the case of the 1-year-old who was killed in my building, the police immediately put out the name of the caretaker of the resident in my building in whose apartment the child was found dead. Now, if you know the caretaker by name, you must know the resident. And what's happening? I mean, there's just a deafening silence.
I think we all share your frustration, Karen, that was already also brought up earlier in the meeting, I think before you were here,
Yes.
when Lieutenant Forrest was on the phone. I think
reveal anything?
She didn't. And I mean, I can't, like you, I feel the same way you do. I just like, it's outrageous. And I don't know enough about the machinations of how NPD, you know, does their stay away orders for any of us to, we're going to try and stay on top of it as best we can. We did ask her to report back to us.
Thank you.
And but thank you so much for contributing. We hope you will testify. This is why we have the office here, is to publicize this as much as we can. We're going to try and continue to publicize it, because this ANC has talked repeatedly, as Mr. King and I spoke earlier this week. I was like, we're your audience. Like, we have talked about this and talked about this. I hope that people who are here and listening will consider testifying. We all know these stories. We've heard these stories. We've seen these stories affect our neighbors. And we want to be, I know a lot of us want to be a part of trying to come to some solutions that can help people feel safe, because over and over we hear that people don't feel safe in their homes. So thank you so much for being here. And because it's already 9 and we're supposed to end at 9, I'm gonna move to the next issue. And I know both Damon and Zinnia have left their contact in the chat and are willing to discuss, I think.
I'm disabled, so I can drop mine in there too.
Yeah, Adrian,
You're,
can you do that? And so we'll get all that information there. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being for
Sorry, and
coming.
before I go off, I want to say, Karen,
Please.
I don't know if you can look into seeing if your building can integrate its cameras into the MPD real-time crime center so that they're able to get like quicker access to like that footage. So maybe you can look into that.
Okay, wait a minute, let me write it down. Okay, so should integrate our camera.
We'll follow up with you on that
just a
too as
minute.
well. Thank you so much.
Wait a minute.
Sorry, Karen, I can't hold the meeting up.
Integrated, Xenia, into the
Karen, we'll actually post the
into the
information in
MPD
chat for you.
system. We're gonna get it for you, Karen. Don't worry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're gonna go to Shantice. Shantice is gonna tell us about tomorrow's public safety meeting. So this is just, we're staying on topic here. Councilmember Fruman is hosting a meeting tomorrow at UDC. Shantice, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I want to say good evening to everyone and happy early holidays and everything to everyone. So tomorrow we're holding our public safety forum at the UDC Student Center Ballroom. So we plan to have in attendance, 1 second. From MPD, we'll have Commander Savoy and the Assistant Chief, Andre Wright. We're also going to have the OUC Director, McGaffin, the Deputy Attorney General, and Director Zylinger's Chief of Staff, David Ross from DHS is going to be there. So we're going to use this opportunity to talk about the SAFE Act. We're going to talk about trends that are in the ward. We're going to talk about the crime and other public safety issues and concerns that the residents and constituents are having, especially related to like Connecticut Avenue. The forum will be held hybrid, in person at UDC and online. I can send the registration link. We do encourage people to register. You wouldn't be able to get the link until you register if you're trying to attend hybrid. So we really just want to get the word out. It's going to be tomorrow from 6:30 to 8 p.m. The beginning is basically each agency are going to have slides and talk for a couple minutes about the topics that I just mentioned. And then we're going to have Q&A for about an hour. That's going to be the majority of the time. Pretty much is Q&A with the audience, the people in person and people on Zoom. So any questions that you may have for any of those agencies, we encourage you to hop on and ask those questions so we can get those answers. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to upload the video, probably not tomorrow night, by Thursday. So
and Shantice, can you give us the information to put in the chat, the exact information about actually I might have it here, about where the ballroom is located. Yeah,
oh, sure.
And the registrations.
Sure, I want to because my laptop lost service. That's when I got kicked out and jumped on my phone. So I'm
okay. One of us has it for sure, I think, right? Can someone pull up that the email from Fruman's office and then pop that in the chat while we're on our next topic? That would be great.
If I try to log back.
That's okay. No. Don't worry about it because it's after 9, so we're gonna keep on trucking here. And one of the 6 of us during the next couple minutes will be able to get that information out. And I thought actually I'd already had it up, but I don't. Thank you so much for bearing with us, and thank you for I think that meeting again for this group here is going to be a really welcome, and we're all very grateful to you and your office for assembling people who some of whom have been at our meetings, and maybe we feel like we have more things to ask them. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night.
No problem. See you tomorrow night. Everyone enjoy their night.
Take care.
You too.
Commissioner Bear. DC Water.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Emmanuel Briggs and Jarrell.
The DC Water indicated to us last week that they were moving forward with work on the area at the intersection of Albemarle and 32nd. So tonight I expect they'll give us a little bit of a schedule and an updating of where they are with regard to that work. I'll turn it over to you, Emmanuel.
Commissioner Jarrell's going to jump right in with an update on where we are.
All right, thank you, Emmanuel. Good evening, everyone. So as Commissioner Bear stated, we do have an update to share with you all. As you know, we sent out some community updates where we encountered a 72-inch storm drain near the manhole location. We had to kind of go to the drawing board and address some shoring issues and come up with solutions to move forward. And we now have that. So some of the things you'll see, the next steps in this process to get this complete is our contractors, they began ordering the materials needed to be able to install the steel pipe. So we are going to install a custom fit steel pipe that fits into that 72-inch drain and basically replace a segment of the existing pipe. Once that pipe is installed, we'll line it and basically enhance its structural integrity. From there, we'll begin the shoring work for the manhole. Once the pipe installation is complete, we'll begin the shoring installation and start the manhole demolition and replacement. During that time as well, we'll be coordinating closely with PEPCO to de-energize some of the overhead assets in the area. So we've been coordinating with them. As far as the timeline goes, right now we anticipate to complete the 72-inch pipe replacement by the end of this year, weather permitting. And then from there, we would be able to develop a more accurate schedule of the manhole restoration work.
Okay, I don't have any questions at this time. And I'll open it up for any from the other members of the commission.
Thank you.
I'm at a loss for words. Terry,
I would
you
just
something?
say, yeah, sure. Emmanuel and your team, thank you so much for the update. I know our building, we're directly affected because it's right outside my window and everybody else. So that'll be, I'll provide update to my fellow residents, and thank you so much for that information. Much appreciated. It sounds like you have two projects in one now because of that previously unknown storm drain, but thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. We're gonna move along to another issue from Commissioner Bear, the DOEE Linnean Avenue Outfall and Gully Restoration Project.
Yeah, Matt English, are you still on the call?
Hi.
I have unmuted, yeah.
Here he is.
All right, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Hi, yes, I'm here and I'd love to share a little bit about the Linnean Gully restoration. Originally, Mitch and I had sort of talked about doing a 10-minute presentation, but I want to sort of check in with you all now, considering the hour, how you'd like to proceed with that. Should I try and trim that back a bit?
Yeah, if you could, Matt, why don't you give us a 2-minute heads up on it and then send us the slides and we'll distribute it or post them on our website.
All right.
And apologies, it's not no indication of our interest or importance of the issue. Thanks for being understanding.
Can you all see the screen that I'm sharing now?
Yes.
Great. So I'm just going to move through some stuff quickly because we have a short amount of time, but I will say, quite fortuitously, I am hosting a 1-hour virtual meeting on Thursday at 7 o'clock if you'd like to learn more about this project. And so rather than getting the 10-minute presentation I could have given tonight, you could come and have the 1-hour version and ask all the questions you want. But real quick, the project that we're doing is a stream restoration at the end of Linian Avenue. It's a 200-foot project that goes from the end of the street down to Soapstone Creek. This is the watershed. You can see from some of these photos, there's a lot of erosion that's occurring in the stream, and we're just trying to repair that. Here's some more pictures of the erosion that's occurred.
I lost the screen share. Does anybody else, does anyone else see
Now
it?
we don't have your screen share anymore.
Oh,
It was up for a second, then it went away. So
it's really helpful to see the things that I'm looking at. All right, how about now?
Yes, we can see it now.
All right, let's see. All right. So here's the project site, watershed, some photos of the erosion that's occurring. And our goals really are to create a stable stream that goes down from the end of Linian to Soapstone Creek. This is an example of what stream restoration can look like, sort of a step pool system, and a photograph of what things might look like here on the right. And what I want to say is on our project webpage, we have semi-final designs that are available to download. And so if the community is interested, please go in there. I can put that webpage in the chat, and you can look at the semi-final designs. I've colored some of them here. So it shows how the cascades work, where our plantings will be, where the construction access will be, where the trees are going to be removed. And I guess to keep it short, if you're interested, come to the meeting on Thursday at 7.
this is great. Thank you so much. I think there probably would be people who would trade 10 minutes at 9 for an hour at 7 on another day. Thank you. What's the I'm sorry if I missed it. What's your timeline? You said these are the semi-final designs. Can you just there we go. Thank you. Put that back up. Yep.
Yeah, so we're getting close to construction. Construction is hopefully going to start in February. Right now, we have permits submitted with the semi-final designs that we put in, and then we'll be receiving final designs next month after we get sort of all of our feedback in. And so we hope to be moving towards construction in February.
Okay, so if people would like to submit feedback, definitely go to the meeting on Thursday. And then would it be helpful to come back in January as you start construction, and please continue to keep us updated as you start your work, as we sort of have stayed updated on other ongoing construction projects.
Love to come.
Thank you.
Matt,
Thanks a lot.
Matt, if I can ask you to put in the chat the Zoom address or link so that people can have that for Thursday's meeting.
Yeah, I may. I'll try and do that. I could just put the project webpage, which has it's like a flyer that has a link, and then there's some other like passcodes and all that jazz that come into it.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Yeah, I have your information that I cut and pasted, but I just have your title, not the contact information. So thank you.
I can add it all in.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to move on to Commissioner Iglesias, the ABBA placard for Il Supremo.
Yeah, and thank you to Mrs. De Leon and David from El Supremo, who've been hanging out for a bit tonight. I don't think they expected to be here for an extended period. But yeah, I'll let Mrs. De Leon take over shortly. I'm going to unmute you now. But in short, our newer restaurant El Supremo is trying to amend their liquor license to have expanded hours because they inherited one with quite limited hours.
Good evening to everyone. How are you? My name is Anna De Leon, and I am representing El Supremo Italian Restaurant and Bar right there located at 4400 Connecticut Avenue Northwest Washington, DC. I have Chef David also here in the meeting as well. And yes, when he inquired the business, the liquor license, and Flavor Garden had really restricted hours. I spoke to Ms. Deidre, I believe, and she just said she had elderly parents. That's why she requested those hours. And so the business inherited. We're right beneath the hotel there, the Days Inn. And so as well, the patrons there, that come to the hotel, they would like to have breakfast served as early as, 6 a.m. So, we're trying to change the hours for the establishment as far as for serving food. And then we would also like to extend the hours for the alcohol. And if anyone has any questions, we submitted, there was already a settlement agreement in place. So we're just trying to be able to fulfill also the neighborhood and the neighbors and the patrons that come to the business, as far as to be able to also enjoy maybe a glass of wine, a beer or a cocktail, and also expand our hours.
I think it would be really helpful for everybody to hear the existing hours and what you're hoping to expand to.
Okay, so, wow, I'm sorry. So the existing hours, I wasn't prepared on that. The existing hours are, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Let me see here. The existing hours are like from 12 noon.
Do you want me to tell
to-
you? I have it. It's 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, Friday and Saturday, 11 to 10, Sunday, 12 to 7.
Okay.
And they're proposing to be
Right.
open every day from 7 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Right. Well, that's what we put on the application. However, me and Adrian were talking about, and he was explaining to us, and we were just going based on what was on the previous settlement agreement before Flavor Garden. So there was a business prior to that, Trattoria, for many, many years, and they had those hours. So APCO was able to provide us both settlement agreements. And I spoke to a supervisor at APCA, and I also spoke to the specialist, and they said, well, it's just as long as you all can work it out with the ANC, because there is an ANC settlement agreement in place, then, but then also Adrian was explaining to me that now after COVID, the hours have changed in the area as far as the business being open and so forth. So if 2 a.m. is not those are like the full hours that APCA would give any establishment. So, but if they need to be reduced, we're willing to work something out as well.
Does any commissioners have any other questions? I have a question. So my understanding is, we have previous settlement agreements, so we would amend one of those previous settlement agreements to create a new settlement agreement with you. And so that's the act that we need to do before, I think I'm not quite sure. I don't have the date up here. I have the rest of the information. What I think Adrian presented to us is, to me, 2 a.m. sounded late for this neighborhood. But my understanding is the other establishments in the neighborhood also have a 2 a.m. license, and that includes Felina, the new Rosedale. So whereas I feel like when I first read your application, I just want to sort of give other people the background. I was like, nothing around here is open until 2.
Right.
I do feel like that's actually where the establishments that are serving food and eating them. Now, this is different than a liquor store, which I think we all talked about in reference to some other establishments opening. Serving food, an operating restaurant, 2 a.m. actually is the norm, even though it doesn't seem like the norm in our neighborhood.
Correct.
Is that's correct? And then I think Adrian, you researched that, so that's the case. I think Yeah,
Okay,
please.
go ahead. No, please, go ahead. No problem. Go ahead. I wanted to hear what you were saying.
No, I think I was just going to say that I think our next step is that Adrian needs to write a settlement agreement that reflects our proposal to you.
Okay.
And then the two of you can discuss that and figure out the give and take. This is what we did with Mr. Green. And then
Okay.
what I don't know is the date that you need to have this in place.
As soon as possible, but I
Okay.
mean, whenever I understand, we've been in the meeting the whole night, and I know it's very busy, and we're headed to the holidays and everything. So, but we just want to be able to, if it could be done maybe by the end of the month, so we can get it in place by next month. So for the holidays, people could come and enjoy enjoy a little bit longer if needed. They're very long
And
hours.
we, yeah, and I guess the other thing I would say in background is that you probably don't want to have a business open that isn't serving anybody. So it's again not like you're going to have extended hours that don't make sense for your business. And actually, what I also want to say is welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you so
and
much.
I'm sorry I didn't say that first because
No problem at all.
That's what I mean. Thank you so much for coming to our neighborhood. Thank you for being a part of our neighborhood. We're really excited to all meet you in person and patronize your business. And we're
And
wishing you
please
all the
come
luck.
by. Yeah, David,
Yeah.
Luis David is the chef. And he worked there for many years, for 18 years back when it was Trattoria.
Oh,
in
Tesoro.
kitchen. So he's familiar with the neighborhood, and he knows, I believe, some of the, customers and neighbors and everything in the area. So please do come in and enjoy. Okay, thank
That's
you.
great news. Okay, so we'll bring you. We'll come back to you.
Okay.
And thank you so much for coming to the meeting. Thank you for sticking with us. Our next step is
Thank
to
you
write
for
a
inviting
settlement
us.
agreement. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
And then we have another one, the BZA temporary case 4548. Mr. Gregory from DGS. Welcome and thank you for hanging in. This is a really important issue, and the late hours should not change how we feel about what you're doing and how we might help get this sorted out.
Perfect. Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Thank you. I have a presentation, but first and foremost, good evening, Chair Carlson and members of the committee and the community. My name is Phil Gregory. I work for the Department of General Services as a project manager, and I'm responsible for rolling out or implementing various projects throughout the district. Now, in support of this presentation, I'm also joined by members of a larger team, team members who are responsible for the deployment of this particular public safety project at the University of District of Columbia. First and foremost, Solomon Tadese is the manager of all 10, hello Solomon, of all 10 remote sites throughout the districts. UDC happens to be one of them. Dwayne Kinley is the Motorola project manager who is responsible for the relocation of this particular radio site from building 41 to building 38. Hello, Dwayne. And finally, Eric Cole, who has been instrumental in pulling all the necessary permits and all the drawings for the project, which I'm about to describe. So with that, I'd like to transition directly into the presentation. Let me pull it up here. Please let me know when you are able to see it.
You're good to go.
Perfect, thank you. All right, sounds good. So essentially what this scope is about, folks, is relocating an existing public safety radio site currently in building 41 of UDC. Juanita Gray did a phenomenal job summarizing the activities surrounding building 41. just to give you an idea of what the antennas that we are intending on installing in building 38 look like. This is a very close-up shot of the antennas. You have two omni antennas for the transmission of public safety radio communication, and four what we call panel antennas, which are there to transmit communication. So these two are to receive, the other four are to transmit. These antennas are actually part of a infrastructure that Mr. Tadese online here manages. We happen to be here at UDC, but he's got 9 other sites that he manages. And these public safety sites essentially allow the exchange of communication with first responders, with residents in any of the areas within the district, and certainly with law enforcement. And to give you an idea of what would happen if we did not have UDC radio site, what you're looking at here, and let's see if I can just give you a zoom in just a tad. So these two pictures here show the coverage from an exterior point of view that the radio sites offer. Anything that's in purple is perfect, all right? UDC is right here. If you were to remove a radio site from UDC, you would essentially have a gap in coverage from an exterior point of view. Moving on to first responders, law enforcement, and FEMS and EMS, this is what you currently have. So this particular slide here shows the coverage inside UDC and surrounding areas with the radio site. If you were to remove this radio site, you would wind up with a huge gap in radio coverage for that entire area. So moving down to the aerial view of the project, Building 41 here. As you know, this one is going away. We would like to install the antennas in this shelter area, actually this parapet area on top of Building 41. This is an aerial view of the area where those antennas would go. And what we would like to do is to install these antennas inside the screen wall or shelter. So essentially, you would not see any of the antenna mounts because they would be inside this area here. On this side here, we would install two 20-foot omni antennas for the reception and four panel antennas for the transmission of data. These antennas, as I pointed out, would be within the screen wall. And you probably have noticed the existing antennas in Building 41. They would be exactly the same type of antennas. They are very slender in their appearance and are built of very light metal to minimize the contrast with the background sky. Moving down to a series of slides that Eric Cole prepared for this presentation. Again, this is Building 38 with the area where those antennas would go. What you see here are actually numbers that represent the view from specific vantage points outside of the UDC campus. So anything that's in red, you would not be able to see the antennas on Building 38. Anything in green, you are able to see the antennas, right? And I'm going to move quickly to the simulation exercise here that we prepared. So on this particular picture here, you'll notice that the view from 4309 Connecticut Avenue, you cannot see the antennas, even though they're actually on top of Building 38 as a simulation. They have not been installed yet, since we need your letter of support before we can move forward. On the next slide, we have another shot This one was taken from Wyndham Place and Connecticut Avenue. As you can see, we cannot see any of the antennas, even though the simulation exercise shows that they're there. Moving down to the next slide, again, impossible to see the antennas because of the vantage place point. We do, however, actually, I apologize. This is the building 41 antennas. This whole building is going away. The antennas would be on the left side of the screen. You would not be able to see it because they would be inside that particular shelter that we talked about. Moving down to this other slide, building is going away. The antennas would be behind this tree right here above building 38. You would not be able to see those. The only two areas where you would be able to see the antennas, actually, let me pull this up. This is another shot of a building 38 that you wouldn't be able to see the antennas. There are two areas where you would be able to see the antennas on building 38. Again, this is a simulation, is at the intersection of International Place and Van Ness Street. Okay, so you have the same type of antennas that I showed you earlier on the building 41. Okay, you've got your two Omnis here with your panels. Okay, and the last picture also depicts the antennas. This one, if you are familiar with the UDC campus, this would put you right smack in the middle of the campus, staring right up at the building 38. Building 38 is the business and public administration building with your four panel antennas here and your two Omni antennas there. Okay, so you would be able to see them from within the courtyard. And what I did on the next slide, folks, is to essentially transpose the scope of the project into the surveyor's map, but also into the 200-footer. If you look at this particular slide here, you'll notice that the existing antennas are actually in building 41, and we are asking your support in moving those antennas over to this particular building right here. Okay. Last but not least, we have opened a BZA case. We actually have an active case, which we will present to the BZA in the next few months. This BZA case will be for us to request special exception for the installation of these antennas on building 38. Now, this particular project here goes hand in hand with the description that Ms. Gray described earlier regarding building 41. Building 41 cannot be demolished until we actually have antennas on the rooftop of building 38. And the reason for that is, as I pointed out in my slide earlier, we would lose complete coverage of radio communication, public safety communication, which is paramount to this topic here. If we were to eliminate the antennas and not have time to install them on the building 38. Okay, so I've trimmed my presentation as much as I could. I know it's a critical topic, but I certainly would like to open it up to any questions this team might have. Chair Carlson, members of the committee.
I think it was fairly straightforward project, and and I feel like one of the few questions that people might have had would have been, what am I going to see from the street? So I really thank you for including those simulations and pictures.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Iglesias, and that was a very important. This is also what the planners intend to look at when we make our case to the BZA. Again, critical timeline. We are asking and we're eliciting and soliciting your support in getting a letter out that we can share with Ms. Vitali with the Department of Building. And, this particular letter of support is really the only item that is required before BZA will provide a conditional approval for the installation of those antennas. And this will be conditional until we go to a full-fledged BZA in the next few months.
So I think I'm not quite sure if we need to vote in order to send a letter of support, but why don't we I move that we vote to support the temporary case 4548, the relocation of the OUC 911 radio site from UDC building 41 to 38. All in favor?
I second. Aye.
Oh, sorry, second. Thank you. Gosh. Thank you, Terry. And now Terry seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's a unanimous vote. Commissioner Iglesias, we work with Mr. Gregory tomorrow to get him the letter of support that he needs. And we want to do whatever we can to support you. Thank you so much. This is really important work, and we appreciate that all of the work that has gone into this, because it's the kind of thing we don't see. I had to put on my glasses to see it. But it's what keeps our neighborhood safe. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chair Carlson and members of the committee and the community. Thank you for all your support.
Absolutely. Please let us know if there's other things that we can do to be helpful as you complete this process.
Thank you. So we should expect a letter from your team, Chair?
Adrian, so I think if you and Adrian can work together to make sure that I think when you and I talked last week, we talked about making sure we had the correct wording for what you needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we just want to work together to make sure that, we can write a letter that says we support this and we voted in favor of it, but we want to have the wording correct so that it says what you needed to say.
I appreciate that.
Make it quick and make it effective.
I'll follow up with you tomorrow, either with more questions or with just a draft for you to review.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Commissioner Iglesias.
Thanks.
No problem. Thank you. And I'm
Thank
very
you.
sorry. Phil was hunting me down for quite a bit, and I'm very elusive with my phone, so I apologize, but you've been on my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay. The last bit we have, I think Commissioner Bear, Commissioner Bear is somewhere, but I don't have him spotlighted anymore. I don't know where he went. Sorry. I think he's still here. Sorry.
I'm still here.
I think you didn't have a treasurer's report, but what we do need is for commission business, a December 1 ANC report for the year. So that's just a report. I think we were all copied on this week. I think it involves putting together the minutes. So that's probably Commissioner Hewitt's last act. I don't know if there's someone else who can work with you on putting that together, because it is a timeline of December 1st. Is there anyone else who can?
Everyone got Kent's note saying that we had to prepare a summary of the key aspects and key actions of the commission during the past year. So December 1st, it needs to be put together.
Oh, before December 1st. So Terry, I think that's sort of a secretary. Is there someone else who can step up and help Terry with that?
I'll work this. I'll work it. I'll get back to you if I need it.
I'm glad to help, though I was absent for like half of that year.
Yeah, maybe someone who's been in since the get-go, but thank you for stepping up. Okay. All right. Well, in that, we are going to adjourn. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that the meeting ended up being much longer than we'd anticipated. Again, I want to thank so much to Commissioners Hewitt and Slotnick for your service and for your partnership. And we look forward to seeing your faces on this meeting on January the 14th, even though you are not obligated to be here. So that brings us to the next ANC meeting. Will be held Tuesday, January 14th at 7 p.m. We hope to see you here with several new faces. And with that, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody. Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Good night.